Yeah, baby. Let me brain it real quick. Oh. I actually got something out of it. That was crazy. He tried to make a run for it with the shaft in him. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Cooking with Clams. I'm Will, and if you've been along for the ride, this is the fourth and final episode of the Black Grouper Scraps series. So if you haven't been along for the ride, go back to episode 1 and you'll see that I kept all the scraps from a black grouper that my friend Aaron shot. He took the fillets, I took the rack, the head, the collars, and the ribs. So this is the last episode. We're gonna make matzo ball soup out of the rack. Normally it's made with chicken broth, but we're gonna make a broth out of all of this. Now, if you've been along for the series and have enjoyed it, please go ahead and hit that like button now. It really helps the channel and will get things moving for us. Now I'm gonna start on the broth. I have celery, carrots, some onion scraps, a shallot, and garlic. Now, one of the things that I do is I leave the skin on because we're gonna be straining it anyway. But I do cut off the ends just in case there's any dirt in those roots. Now, if you noticed, I have no oil in the bottom of my pan. That's because I want things to heat up just a little bit, not get them brown, but just heat up a little bit because I don't want oil in my broth. I'm gonna add just a touch, and then the oil from the fish is actually gonna keep things from sticking. And now this is sea salt that I made in an earlier episode. So if you want to check out how that was done, go ahead and check that episode out. And I am not shy with the salt when making a broth. And some pepper. And now just a drop of olive oil. Not much at all. I have this on a medium heat. I don't want things to brown or caramelize. I just want them to sweat. That's it. Now I've broken up our black grouper rack. And if you look really close here, in between the spine, all that gelatin. So all of that is going to be released into our broth, and that's going to replace what would be the chicken fat. Now we add water. Throw the lid on. We're going to bring that to a boil, then lower it to a simmer. And we're gonna let that simmer for minimum 2 hours. Okay, while our broth is simmering, we're gonna make our matzo balls. And for those of you that don't know what matzah is, it's an unleavened bread in Jewish culture, normally served on Passover. And now matzah meal is that bread crushed up. And then matzah balls is that bread then made into, for lack of a better word, meatballs. And then that'll go into our soup. But after we make this, it has to go into the fridge for at least an hour. And then we'll make the balls and put them in the soup. So everything will actually be done around the same time. So first things first, we have 3 eggs. Now beat those. Now 2 tablespoons. You can use vegetable oil, olive oil. Normally it would be chicken lard, but because we're using the fish to make the broth, we don't have that, so we're going to use actually olive oil. So 2 tablespoons. 1/4 cup seltzer or club soda or chicken broth. But this, don't know the exact chemical reaction, but because of the carbonation in this, you will get a much lighter matzo ball. So we'll do about 1/4 cup. Pepper, our salt, and 1 cup of the matzo meal. Now, much like meatballs, you don't want to over stir this. And the reason why is because it's bread, it has gluten. The more that you stir it, you're gonna make it gummier and gummier until it's actually, you end up with these matzo balls that are gonna be tight and chewy. We don't want that. So very lightly, keep folding the matzo meal into the eggs until everything is incorporated. Once it is, we'll put it in the fridge, wait our 2 hours for our broth to come up, we'll strain our broth, we'll make our matzo balls, and then we'll put them in the soup. So our broth's been simmering 2 hours. Now it's time to strain it. We're gonna do that in the kitchen sink over here. Now we strain the soup, and the first thing I do is grab a slotted spoon and pull out all of the larger pieces. Now this fish, you could pick through that meat and use it for things like fish cakes. It's gonna be a little bit dried out because it has been cooking for about 2 hours, but there is a lot of meat there. Now in our house, we usually pick through it, and Tipsy, our dog, gets a good meal. So now that I pulled out all the big scraps, I'm gonna run our broth through a mesh sieve to get out any fine scraps. And what I'm left with is our fish broth. And this is what we're gonna cook the matzo balls in. We moved our broth to a smaller pan. So I have that here. I'm gonna bring that back up to a boil and then put it down to a simmer. Now my matzo meal has been in the fridge for 2 hours. And one important thing is a bowl of water. So you dip your hands into the bowl of water, a little bit of matzo meal, and we're gonna make matzo balls just under the size of a ping pong ball. So about that size. Trust me, you're gonna see why in a little while. And again, you don't want to handle this too much. You just wanna grab them and roll them, and that's it. The less you handle it, the better, and the more fluffy matzo ball you'll have. Have all my matzo balls rolled, and we are at a simmer. So now I'll drop them in one at a time, which is going to bring the heat down, but that's okay because once they're in, we're going to put the lid on, bring it back up to a boil, and back down to a simmer again. That's a good sign that they're already floating. Light as feathers. And I'm gonna add some sliced carrots. Throw my lid back on, and we're gonna bring that to a boil, down to a simmer, and let it simmer for 20 to 25 minutes. And we'll meet you back here. It's been 22 minutes. And come here and look at this. This is the phenomena that happens with the matzo balls. Now that's also a good sign that they puffed up. That means hopefully that they are light and fluffy and airy. I'm gonna turn off my heat. Going in. Dare I say we nailed it. Light, fluffy, that broth is rich. I don't miss the chicken broth at all in this, at all. I don't think anyone would. It's not super fishy, even though it's fish broth. But it is very, very rich, and those matzo balls are really nice and light. And down here in Key West, I don't know if you've noticed today, but it's a little bit dreary. We don't get many dreary cold days, so on a day like this, to get the chance to make a soup like this, I'm gonna take it. So one thing I want to talk about before we sign off is what we did in this series. We took the scraps from a 22-pound black grouper and we made 4 meals out of it. I fed each of those meals, I fed 4 people. So altogether, you're talking 16 plates of food out of something that would be discarded. So just keep in mind, be an ethical spear fisherman, whatever it is. Just know, use the entire beast. And that's what we did in these episodes, and that's what I hope to keep doing on further episodes. Thanks a lot for supporting the channel, and I'll see you on the next one.